Okay, so we're gonna do the brows next, and the first one I start with is brows, outer brows, so it's brows out, up. So it's sort of like a look of maybe disdain, surprise. So yeah, let's go down here. We'll go into new, rename, brows out, up. And again, we want to kind of look at the shape here. I might just turn up the hair so it's easier to see. Yeah, and I've got some extra loops and things in here as well, just to kind of add potential for wrinkles. So the main area of effect is essentially this region here, right? It does affect the eyelids a little bit too, but again, we're not just pulling up. So I want to make sure that you know not just kind of grab stuff, oops, and pull it straight up, right? Because sure, that kind of works, but looking like some bad plastic surgery. So, you know, just remember that there is like a curvature, right? So if an area is pulling up, right, we want to maintain that curvature and pull it along the bony structure. So even in a more cartoony face, you know, I will still try to maintain some underlying structure. So again, we're kind of pulling up. Let's see, yeah. I'll do a bit more of the outer as well. Now, the other thing I like to do typically is that you will get some wrinkling, and again, it'll be more aggressive in an older character, but I've set up my model so that it does have extra forehead wrinkles, and I'll try to follow a particular track for those wrinkles. So I'm just going to turn up the lazy radius, lazy smooth here. Okay. All right, so we have something like that. You can have one or two, you can have three or four if you like. All you need is basically three edges, one that dips in and then another on each side that sort of moves out. And we can also accentuate this by doing a little bit of inflate, just up the inflation there. And then a little bit of smoothing too. I'm just going to make sure it kind of blends in nicely with the rest of the head. Excuse me. All right. Okay, so now we got, yeah, yeah. So if you take a look, especially from a 3/4 view, you know, you should sort of see that the brow underlying like bony structure is maintained, and then we're sort of sliding up and along the skull, okay? So that's kind of the main guideline I would say for things like the brow movement is that, you know, there is a cranial structure. You can be a little bit more loose, but I still generally suggest you follow the kind of base silhouette of a cartoonier character, right? So we can get a, you know, accentuated sad look, or let's see, upper lip up. Right? Yeah. Next is the brows out, the outer brows down. So brows out, down. Brows out, DN for down. So yeah, basically it's more of a flattening almost, or a straightening of any arch, and we tend to see a bit of a bulge kind of between the brow and the upper eyelid. Okay, so you see it kind of dropping, straightening, and a little bulge here, right? So same area of effect, and sometimes I'll try this actually. Let me just go down to the down. Yeah, the down is a little too wrinkly and stuff, so I won't use that, but let's go back and record here. It's another reason why I tend to have prefer a much lower poly eyebrow as well. It's just a little bit easier. Oops. A little bit easier to kind of control and manipulate it and keep it looking fairly good. So again, I want to kind of follow the track. Yeah. Again, because we're kind of bringing the brow down, I'm just going to kind of try to keep the brow shape fairly straight and linear, just because I feel like it's a little bit more appealing on this sort of cartoony character. So I'll come in with a little bit of inflate, basically in this zone here, okay? And I'll just drop the intensity, but maybe increase the size a bit here. One thing I find is a little bit troublesome with the inflate brush is that it's really hard to fine tune. I find it either goes really aggressively or not at all. You know, it's sort of like got very little in between. So again, you can sort of see it almost adds a little bit of like sadness. And again, I'll just try to work with it there, right? Again, look at it in 3/4 view to see if the shapes are working. And in my case, I've got some texture on, so I will maybe just turn it off or turn, if you have colorize on and there's color, turn it off. Okay, so I just want to see it to make sure there's no kind of unappealing shapes here. So again, I'll turn record back on. If it goes black, just turn off colorize. So yeah, I'm going to try the shift, let go shift, you know, drag, just to blend this in, because there's a little bit of awkward buckling there. So I just want to keep it a little bit smoother and cleaner. Even in a more realistic character, you know, you don't want to get like too many undue or excessive like lumps and bumps and creases that aren't anatomically there. Okay, so I think that looks okay. I'll turn the texture back on. Back to skin shade 4. Right, so again, well, I always like to kind of mix and test. So we'll go to, let's say, a partial frown, and then we'll, right, drop those outer brows down. And I think that's quite effective, right? There. So again, the brows, they go much easier just because they're much bigger shapes moving along much kind of flatter areas. The eyelids can be a bit tricky when it comes to blinks and squints and things like that, but it's usually not so bad. And again, with cartoony characters, you can go much, much further, right? You can straighten the upper eyelids a bit more too. Yeah, I tend not to drop my eyelids as much. I usually use a squint in combination with the brow down, but you can add a bit of, so let me go back to that. Actually, I'll turn that on again. So if you wanted to, you could drop the brow again I'll use move topological. Actually, I'll use just regular move and mask the bottom half here of the eyes, just so I don't inadvertently grab them. Okay, make sure maybe we're working in symmetry. We'll pull forward again. If things are popping through, just make sure you pull forward, which might require a higher view angle here. Okay. So we can have that in combination, but again, I tend to prefer to have that be a bit separate, but I'm okay if that's a part of your shape. Okay, so next is the mid, which is basically this region here, right? Brows mid up, brows mid down, and then there's a squeeze, okay? So I'll create a new brows mid up. So again, we're kind of masking here. So again, we want to kind of slide along that surface. Oops, let me just, yeah, there we go. So I usually, again, to keep the brow shape, if you alt click and drag forward, that maintains the brow shape from where we slid from. And yeah, I'll try maybe snake hook here, just to get a little more curvature if I can. Again, we can create some nice forehead wrinkles here. So again, I'll go in with a damn standard. 1 or 2 is fine in a younger character, and you can either make them less pronounced in younger characters or make them more pronounced in older characters. And you can have, again, more in an older character, few in a younger character. Again, if I hold shift, let go, or just do it very, very subtle. So I'm going to hold shift and just drop the Z intensity to like 10 and just kind of do a little bit of blending with that right there. All right, so it's just very, very subtle. Okay. So again, throw in a frown, maybe the brows out, down, right? So you can have a very like sorrowful, sad expression, right? It's really amazing how quickly these things come together. And if you do them well, and if you follow the guidelines of the book, it really describes things well for realistic, semi-stylized and fully stylized characters. So you can push things to quite an extreme limit. Okay, that's brows mid up. And then we'll do brows mid down. This is a bit more like if you combine this with the upper lip up, then you get much more of like a sneer. I think there is actually a specific sneer, if I'm not mistaken. No, sorry. So yeah, this one is basically like, yeah, just pulling straight down. So sometimes, again, I like to try the opposite. So if I go to brows mid down negative, that's actually not bad. I like the motion. I don't like the shape of the brow itself, but I'll rework it. So I'm going to actually take it at about 50%. So this is a great way where you can take an existing blend shape and basically pipe it back into a new layer. So I'll delete the current morph target, store this one. I'll reset this to 0, create a new morph, rename it again, brows mid down, DN for down, and then basically just slide the morph up, okay? And then I'm going to essentially just inflate this and create some, just create a little bit of puckering and whatnot. So inflate around here a little bit, right? Because that's all the flesh is kind of moved down into this region. And then using dam standard, throw in a couple of wrinkles, right? And if you want to, we can inflate. Like I said, sometimes you get very lucky and the shapes actually work when you go to the negative. I'll throw in another one here, maybe just a very small one. Again, it's a good idea to see the wireframe so you can really accentuate the shapes a bit, right? And I'm going to inflate the upper side of this wrinkle, the top side here, because I think it should pucker up a little bit more there. Nice. Okay, so again, we can put a little frown. Let's say upper lip up. No, lower lip down. Upper lip up. Okay. I'll just I'll use the Z plug, and this is the Maya blend shape tool that we're going to use to basically export this to Maya, but I'm going to just turn everything off. It's a quick way to just make sure all the morphs are set back to 0. And then the last one, I think, for the brows is going to be squeeze. The next ones are basically eyelids, so it's squint and blink. So squeeze is pretty much the same. It's just bringing it inwards, not up or down, but pinching it into the center, which again will kind of make it seem a little bit like anguish or deep thought, concentration. And you can either add wrinkles sort of just above the kind of at the outer edge of the inner portion of the brows. I can put it more in the center. For me personally, I think that works better. So I'll go in here and we'll take a look at that. New. Brows. Whoops. Come on, you. Brows. Squeeze. Okay, and then we're basically pulling inwards. So if there is more of a pointed shape, then you can pull that. Oops, excuse the move, not the inflate. There, so I'm going to pull this stuff inwards here. And I'll do some just above as well, because it's quite a big region. Again, if we hold shift, let go, you can get this nice kind of blending. So yeah, you can have either vertical or horizontal or diagonal creases. It doesn't have to be uniform. Let me just up my intensity a little bit. There. Sometimes they'll just be dimples. Depending on the face, you can have like little indentations. And then I'll sort of counteract those divots or those wrinkles with inflate, just to kind of, again, we want to see a bulge somewhere. Again, we're stretching in one area, but then kind of bulging out in another, right? And if we take a look, it's this very kind of concerned look. So if you do a squeeze and an up, right? So those things can all kind of add together. Maybe down, right? Very, very sad. So it all comes together rather quickly, right? Okay, so we'll turn all that off. The last one here is the squint. So again, I don't usually make the eyes close as much on the squint. I usually have them close a little bit, and I focus more on the sort of like bulging, because I'll use the blink in combination often with the squint. Because sometimes you can kind of just have the cheek Like if you practice with your face, right? Just get your upper cheeks, upper outer cheeks, and the under part of your outer eyelid, or the under part of the brow, outer brow. You can make them contract almost independently. Almost. There's usually a subtle movement of the eyelids. So, yeah, my preference is here. Let's go to squint. Okay, so the idea basically is that we're sort of pulling down from the top here a bit, and we're pulling up from the side. You can also hold Alt, which also pulls this stuff kind of outward in the direction it's facing. And then, yeah, you can have a little bit of a kind of closing happening here, with just a little bit of nudging back and forth with the move tool. And then I'll, again, this is why it's good to have like 20,000 plus polys, because then you can kind of create these fine wrinkles. And again, if you have an older character, you may want to try to add more of these things. Gonna hold shift and let go just to kind of like soften this a little bit, so it's a little more subtle, right? Younger characters will have less of this. This is called the crow's feet area, right? Older characters will be much more pronounced. So you can also just go with a much lighter Z intensity on something like Damn Standard as well, so you don't have to constantly like go back and forth with the smoothing and whatnot, okay? I'm just inflating a little bit here just to get maybe one of these wrinkles to pop a little bit more. Again, it's always good to check without texture if you have paint on. I'll turn off colorize, and then maybe we'll look with the, there. I'll inflate in here a bit there. And I'll hold shift and let go just to kind of like average out, and maybe just regular smooth in here, just to blend a little bit better. And I'll turn up my smooth intensity just to help the blend a bit. So again, if we take a look, okay, so this you can use, right, to add an accent to joy, pain, right? So if we have a smile, right, that little bit of squinting goes a long way to make it feel more authentic, right? Or if we're in the frown phase here, let's go to frown, right? And it kind of adds a bit more pain. It really just emphasizes what's already happening in the mouth. Okay, the last one here is going to be blinks. Actually, before I do that, I might want to do a little bit of prep. So usually what I recommend is that we try to polygroup this area. So I'm going to hide a lot of the mesh down here. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can polygroup this a bit. Yeah, let me see if I'll hide this, yeah. This and hide this. There we go. Solo. So yeah, my main motivation here is to basically try to just make the lower eyelid visible. So I might use select lasso here just to kind of quickly split off upper and lower eyelid. I often like to switch to, yeah, select lasso, because it allows me to quickly hide these edge loops. Okay. And then I'll probably extend out, you know, roughly about 3-4 loops, let's say, out from there is where I'm going to create my new polygrouping, essentially. Whoop. This. Okay. Takes a little bit of setup time, but it's worth it, because it really saves a lot of time down the road for quick isolations, quick selections. Okay. Hold spacebar, by the way, if you've kind of made a mistake with your lasso, like I often do. There. Come on. And yeah, I usually want to be kind of at or below the lower, basically at the dividing line between upper and lower eyelid here. And I don't necessarily want the whole eye cup. I usually refer to the socket as the eye cup. But yeah, so I'll probably just remove this selection because, again, I don't want it to pull too much stuff from the inner eye out. Usually I want a fairly simple, fairly tight mask that, I'm going to blur or blend with, here, I'll just hit Control W for that. Okay, so that's basically encompassing the lower eyelid now. Yeah, maybe I'll extend one more loop there. Let me just do that. There, Control W. Then again, I'll kind of have to do the same thing here. Oops. Yeah, by the way, sometimes it's really frustrating to get back to the selection with the lasso. So I'll switch to select rectangle, which should allow me to quickly get to the group I want again. So I'll hide the lower, hide this. Hide the brow. Okay, and then I'll just pretty much hide everything below here. Yeah, I don't usually need to go too far up the head there to get what I'm after. Okay. There we go. Again, it could be tricky if you've got a lot of loops there to deal with, so it's nice when it's a little bit simpler and cleaner. Okay, I'll again pull this back a little bit for the selection. Should be okay, let's say in here. We'll just do this and this. I'll hide, oops, yeah, hide this one. There, I think that should be good for the upper eyelid. So I'll hit Control W. So that's basically one grouping there, okay? Now, what's great about this is, yeah, I'll go to New. I'm going to just create one uniform blink, and I'll show you this asymmetry trick, by the way, works with all the other subtools. So the brows, the left and right side of the brow, not the middle parts, but the outer brows, the smile, the frown. We can do asymmetrical smiles and frowns, but for this exercise, we're just going to deal with some symmetrical blend shapes, and the only asymmetry we'll have is in the blink. So I'll call this blink for now. And usually what happens with the blink is that I'll control click on that group, okay? I'll turn off perspective. I'm going to alt click on the move scale rotate tool. I might actually center this a little bit too. And I'll just pull it a bit further forward. This is on a bit of an angle. I'll hold alt and just rotate this a little bit to sort of be like a central pivot point. Sometimes what I'll do as well is I'll just switch back to the move brush, and I might actually increase the masking in here just to kind of soften it, and then I'll control click once. And basically what should happen is I'll use this red pivot here. Yeah, I'm going to mask a bit more in the upper brow or underbrow. And basically this should come to about a horizontal sort of stop, let's say. Let's see. And usually my kind of rule of thumb is that the upper brow will sort of here, rotate about. Let's get it a solo, by the way. So yeah, this thing is definitely moving too far forward. I'll pull this thing back. Right, so the upper eyelid should be coming in and covering about 70 to 80% of the eyeball. Okay. Now we can also do this where I'm going to just smooth this back here, right? Because there should be a stretch inside of this region, and I can probably get rid of the masking at this point. So I'm going to hold Shift and smooth this out, and I'm okay using the regular smooth just because there is a stretch happening, right? If you had an upper eyelid fold at this point, it would be stretching out. It wouldn't be creased anymore, right? And I'm going to just smooth, smooth, smooth. And if need be, here, let's smoothen this corner area. I do want to make sure too that the eyelid sort of maintains a decent sort of relatively flat shape. I'll use Move Topological and see if this will help. It's a bit tricky sometimes too because yeah, I don't want to grab the lower eyelid, so I'm going to just mask it quickly, and then I'll use a regular move brush. The reason Move Topological won't work for me here is that it'll only grab the upper eyelid, but not the eyelash, and I want them to move in tandem, so I'm going to, yeah, just grab them and try to level them a little bit so the shape makes a little bit more sense, okay? So I want a nice, fairly even closure to that eyelid. Looks pretty good so far. You can hold shift and let go if there's any polishing that needs to be done. And now I can unmask. Again, I usually kind of add a little bit of additional masking in the corners just to, because I know I'm going to blur this. So when I control click and fade it, you'll see it sort of stretches outwards. So again, I basically want to, from a side view, I usually line up first from the corner of the eye. Then from a 3/4 view, I want to be sort of in the middle of the two corners. So I'll just kind of slide, holding Alt, slide it forward there a bit. And again, I'm going to kind of almost treat it like a pivot, right? So I'm going to just align the pivot more to the center and then just rotate it upwards. And that's a good way to get, right, the eyelid to close. And again, if it feels like it's sort of too puffy, then the simple fix is to, sometimes too, if the rotation feels odd, we can kind of turn it. We can also just drag it back in depth, which I think makes a little more sense here. And then just holding shift, here, let's clear the mask. I'm just using regular smoothing now, not the shift let go trick, but I'll start to do it towards the end of this though. So now we want to see, does the blink kind of feel organic? Yeah, it's not too bad. Okay. Turn on the, I'll just turn on my texture for now. Because again, it can make a big difference seeing it with and without the texture. That's something I've been playing with recently is having that texture be on, but it's okay if you're just working with the grayscale. I find it kind of keeps you a little bit more honest because the texture does hide a lot. So this is the other thing too I was mentioning. So let's say you have a smile, and I'll close her jaw here a bit so we see the teeth. Yeah, so we got the smile, the open a bit, and then you said if we kind of semi-blink the eyes and then add the squint, right, it just adds a little bit more of a genuine feel. Fake smiles are usually not including a squint. We'll just turn all these off. Okay, so the final thing to do is the asymmetry, and this is the same way I would do asymmetrical smile or side smile, side frown, left and right side. Basically, you want to take the full blink. I'm going to go to delete morph target, store morph target, turn the blink off. And it's very simple. Create a new layer, call this, for now, I'll just call this blink capital L for left. And with symmetry off, I'll hit B for brush, M for morph, and G is the shortcut chain. And it's the character's left side. So when you're looking at it, it's actually the right side of the screen. And all we literally do is just morph in just that shape. So now we can get the character to wink, right? So there's the left only. And then we do simply the same on the right. So the rest of the shapes come together really, really quickly. And it's one of the reasons I don't really cover it is I'm mainly looking at the symmetrical shapes. And they work pretty well. I think I may have made a small mistake here. I probably just need to do a little inflate in the corner. So I'm going to make sure I maybe go back and tweak that for the other blink. The left to right, sorry, yeah, whoa. So what happens when you double blink? Back to record. Yeah, I'll just make sure these are inflated on both sides. There we go. And then go to the left blink, turn off my uniform blink and just, again, hit record. Okay, and just inflate that kind of close there, okay? Yeah, I do feel like it's almost swelling the underside of the lid, so maybe I should have fixed that in the uniform blink. So I'm probably just going to smooth that back a bit. Again, one way to do this, I'm going to delete the morph target. I'll go back to the defaults, store the default, go back to blink, turn this up, and I'm going to hit, again, BMG. And I'm going to, I'll do this symmetrically. You see I can bring back the eyelid shape a bit better, or the lower kind of like lid shape here, right? And then shift smooth, right? So it doesn't look like it's just like swelling like right away here. We kind of have a bit of a more of a subtle shape in the lower lids. And again, we can do the same thing with the symmetry, or just delete the left and right and redo it with the new morph. Okay. Now, just to show you, just for demonstration purposes, let's say we did want to do an asymmetry on the smile. We take the smile, delete the morph, store morph, and if you were to do a left-right smile, then you create a new layer, smile underscore L. And it's the same thing. Usually I would sort of just turn off symmetry. Basically, I'll mask half the face, control click once or twice to blur it, then go in, right? And then we can kind of get the, let's crank up the intensity on the morph brush to 100. Right, so that's how you can get kind of like a left side, right side smirk, okay? There's one side, then we can do the other very quickly. Smile R. Okay, so that's how you basically expand the set of blend shapes. Yeah, I'll turn the intensity down a bit so I can kind of work it in a bit more. All right, maybe I have a bit more of a natural taper. It's a little bit wonky there, but again, we can always take, let's turn off the smile fully here, and I can try to work in a little bit more there. Do an open. So you can have a bit more of a crooked smile, an asymmetrical smile, right? Okay. Anyways, I'm not concerned with anything besides the left and right asymmetry blinks. So for now, I'll just delete these asymmetrical smiles. And at this stage, it's simply a matter of taking this. I'm going to turn on all the visible tools that I want for the facial preview, facial animation. Just make sure my hair has low enough polys here. And it's really quite simple. If you simply go into visible tools under Z plugin, Maya blend shapes, and if you, let's just turn them all off to start. It's always a good idea. Let's see. Oops. Yeah, let's make sure we're on the head mesh here. Yeah, I'll go to the head mesh and turn off all. And then we'll say export. So visible, we'll take the visible subtools and export them. And when we see export blend shapes, it should essentially go Z this all over to Maya. So it'll take a second for Maya to load. Yeah, it may take a moment, but this should pop in. There we go. And by the way, this is, like I said, my low res mesh is 22,000. But when you hit 3 and smooth, this is essentially, with that dynamic smoothing preview on, this is exactly the same way it appeared inside of ZBrush, right? So what's great about this now is that you now have access to the blend shapes. And we'll talk about this next week, how to animate this. But now we've got everything in here. And we'll wire these together so that the teeth and gums kind of move at the same time, okay? So it'll be easy. You just control the mouth. That will open. Got the smile wide. We got the open, right? So everything can be now set up with a control panel ready to animate.